Hello, everyone. So as we continue along this series of senior military officers, I came across this article where this former retired senior general, four-star, talks about how Israel should use the U.S. Counterinsurgency doctrine that was supposedly successful in Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, there's a couple issues with this whole article. First of all, the retired general doesn't give us full disclosure of who he truly works for. He works for a $500 billion worth of private equity company that has investments in all sectors, to include the government and military. So, so there's a conflict of interest in promoting this doctrine of coin. The U.S. used it. I read the doctrinal publication. I have a doctrinal background. I co-authored Marine Corps Operations and the Marine Corps Planning Process publication. So I'm very familiar with doctrine. The problem with doctrine is implementation is very, very, very difficult, because you have to not only train your subordinates to think along the doctrinal lines, but then you also have to have the trust in implementing that doctrine. That's where the problems happen. And finally, there's always a thinking enemy. So, so it's action, reaction, counteraction. So the issue is this. In Iraq and Afghanistan, our coin doctrine was a failure, ultimately. We failed in both those wars. And the reason for the failure was because we didn't quite understand the culture. Now, doctrinally, it makes a lot of sense. Protect the population, the good people, and then give them economic opportunity for a change. Yeah, that makes great sense. But the issue is there's a thinking enemy on the other side, and he's not going to let you protect the population. He's not going to let you have the economic conditions to improve the lives of the people. Because if you do that, then the enemy fails. So you really have to understand the operating environment. So think about it. So what he's basically saying is, in Gaza, if we use the counterinsurgency manual, the U.S. type operations in Iraq, it's going to be a favorable outcome. I strongly disagree with that. Because the main reason for that is, they're going to have to rebuild Gaza, bring all those people back in who have suffered incredibly, lost family members. They have no loyalty. They want revenge. So it's not going to work. And also, oh, by the way, the coin doctrine hasn't been working in the West Bank. It's been 75 years. Israel has tried everything. It ain't working. The only thing that's going to work is peace. And the only way you're going to get to peace is either a two-state solution or a one-state solution. And this is where all the smart guys and all the, the stakeholders need to get around the table and solve this equation. That's it. It's that simple. A case of beer and a couple bag of Doritos, you could probably figure it out. But the problem is neither side wants to budge a little bit, and every side is making a ton of money. Israel's making, almost $4 billion a year, and the Palestinians are making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and both sides have corruption. One side, on the Israeli side, the prime minister's under trial for corruption. On the Palestinian side, is a corruption, and they're all making money off the backs of the poor people who are suffering. Then you got generals coming in there pitching this doctrine about, hey, let's try a coin, and that's going to work. And they're making money as a spokesperson for the military-industrial complex. So everybody's making money out of war. Major General Smedley Butler was absolutely correct. War is a racket. It's all about the money. And what he ought to be saying is, hey, none of this stuff's going to work. If you want peace, then give those people their freedom. There's a moral dimension to conflict and warfare that we have forgotten as officers, as military strategists. And if you're on the wrong side of that moral dimension, you're not going to win. And we were on the wrong side of that moral dimension in Iraq. We didn't win. We're on the wrong side of the moral dimension in Afghanistan. We didn't win. And understanding a culture is far more than just putting your hand on your heart and saying, Assalamu alaikum. These people have been in conflict for hundreds of years. They can sense, they have this animal instinct where they can sense if you don't like them. So just by putting your hand on the heart and saying Assalamu alaikum is not sufficient enough for you to understand the culture. It's how you hug them, how you squeeze when you hug them, with passion. Or if you're just hugging them just to get away from the guy as quickly as you can, they sense that stuff. And they sense that you don't mean it. So, if we really want to start doing better in other countries, we need to become interoperable with other cultures. And the only way we're going to do that is through language skills, through cultural skills, through actively recruiting people from those cultures to come serve in our military. You know, the reason I was successful and my Marines were successful in Afghanistan was because of the cultural background, being able to speak the languages, understand the culture, understand the religion. But you take somebody like me and you put me in Korea, I'm not going to have a clue. So how do you expect somebody from Oklahoma or Iowa coming up in Afghanistan and being able to navigate through that culture? It ain't going to work. And that's why Mackenzie failed in Afghanistan. You know, he's an Alabama-raised man. You know, went to Citadel, you know, had all the fancy education, you know, wrote a lot of speeches, and was considered a smart guy. Well, you know what? A guy in flip-flops and a turban and Adidas sweatpants outsmarted him. And that's what insurgency operations are all about. You don't need a PhD. You need to be able to think and understand the operating environment. And the operating environment in Gaza is ultimately going to be that those people have to get their freedom. That's the only thing that's going to stop this conflict. And there'll be other challenges for sure after that, you know, but people need to learn to coexist and respect each other and have tolerance for each other. That's the path we need to be on, not go down coin and prolong the conflict for another 75 years. It's going to continue on. And that's our fault. Because as leaders, as military strategists, we need to be able to stand up and say, you know what? It ain't working. This is not going to work. The Kabul withdrawal is not going to work out of Kabul airport. Maybe we should look at other options. That's what we get paid to do. And to get in front of the American public and start, you know, that respects general officers, that trusts our patriotism, you know, that respects what we say and say all these things, but not having a full disclosure behind us and tell them that, hey, I've got financial interests in company XYZ. I work for company XYZ that makes money off the military industrial complex or makes money off wars. You know, the American public has the right to know. The media plays along with all this because they bring these failed generals on TV and so they can promote the military industrial complex, kind of just massage the whole discussion about, hey, you know, this war, you know, this is what's gonna happen in Ukraine, and they're always wrong. I mean, this same general was talking about, you know, the Russia and Ukraine war. He was wrong. If you go back and look at the comments, you know, the same general is telling us how well things are going in Iraq. He was wrong. The same generals were telling us how well things are going in Afghanistan. Oh, just give me 20,000 more troops. We can win this. You know, after trillions of dollars, thousands of American service members killed or wounded, hundreds of thousands of locals killed, guess what happened? Nothing. And now for this general to come on there and say, you know, if we just do coin in Gaza, I think we can win this one, you know? Oh, bullshit. You're not going to win it, you know, because the enemy's got to vote. And we're on the wrong side of the moral dimension of warfare. We got to get on the right side because it matters at the end of the day. Just because you're a 4-star general doesn't mean that everything that comes out of your mouth is going to be right. Stop promoting a line of thought that is going to continue the conflict. Put the same effort towards peace. Every person we kill, there's 10 more that are standing in line, and then there's the revenge cycle that continues, you know, back and forth, back and forth. So that's not a rational outcome, right? So let's use our G2, as we say, our intelligence, and look for pathways to peace. Okay, that's all I got. Stay rugged. Khan out.